Rolls-Royce 20 horsepower limousine by Thrupp and Maberly 1927. Copies of factory build sheets on file show that chassis number JIG 48 down on the 14th of July 1926 and ordered by Roots Limited for their stock, being assigned to Mr. Eric Hill of Weybridge. Thrupp and Maberly built the enclosed limousine coachwork, finished in blue, black, and the car was ready by 13th of December 1926, the guarantee being assigned on 17th of January 1927. Mr. Hill kept the Rolls-Royce for 4.5 years, returning it to Roots Limited on 17th of August 1931. In February 1932, as noted on the copy record card, Lady Edith Bland south of London W1 purchased JIG 4 from Roots Limited. Lady Edith had the car serviced at Rolls-Royce on several occasions during her ownership of 4.5 years. The car was then part exchanged at Roots late in 1938. Lady Edith was allowed 200 on her Humber and 100 on JIG 4 against the purchase of a pre-owned 1936 Rolls-Royce 25/30 horsepower. The third owner, Mr. J. Compton of Crystal Palace, purchased JIG 4 from Roots Limited for 55 as stated on the invoice, which means they made a substantial loss on the deal, which took place January 1939. The car was delivered to Mr. Compton on 3rd of January 1939. There are no further records from late 1939 until 1962, although the car wears Patton Brothers plates on the rear steps as well as Thrupp and Maberly plates on the front steps, indicating that sometime after Mr. Compton's ownership they may well have held this car in stock. A letter from one H.F. Saubier, possibly the fourth owner, is noted on the chassis records during 1962. Mr. Saubier lived in Ostend, Holland, but we cannot know whether he was the only continental European owner, though the Rolls-Royce appears to have remained in Holland for around 18 years. On 3rd of April 1980, JIG 4 returned to the UK, passing into the ownership of one T.E. Roxburgh of Bradford-on-Avon, though the car was not examined by the Vehicle Inspectorate until 28th of July 1982. It seems it may have been off the road for the intervening 2 years. The next, possibly sixth, owner, Mr. Joseph Whitmarsh of Neverhaven, appears to have purchased the Rolls-Royce on 4th of July 1984 but kept it for only 9 months. Next owner, Mr. John Backhurst, purchased the car on 22nd of March 1985 and seems to have enjoyed the car for over 11 years, covering a substantial mileage. On 1st of August 1996, the next owner, Mrs. Anna Nutt of Shardlow, purchased JIG 4. She kept the car for almost 7 years before selling it to a Mr. Harrison in March 2003. Mr. Harrison did not register the car in his name, so the next officially recorded owner is Mrs. Brenda Harrison of Ilkstone, who sold on JIG 4 only 3 months later on 4th of June 2003. It appears the car was offered for sale at auction and bought by Mr. Colin Sherwin of Staffordshire, who undertook an extensive restoration during which he changed the color from blue, black to the red, black it is now. This restoration was reported to have cost in the region of £20,000. Having done a very acceptable job, Mr. Sherwin then sold the car on 27th of July 2005. For the next 6 months JIG 4 was owned by Mr. R. Hibbert of Derbyshire, who then advertised the car for sale in the R-Rec Advertiser of January 2006. On 26th of January 2006, the Rolls-Royce was bought by a Mr. Rackham of Maidstone, who sold it to the current owner in September 2007, having fitted a replacement engine. The original engine came with car when the current vendor purchased it from Mr. Rackham, and this has now been rebuilt and reinstalled, all invoices and photographs available. Fewer than 900 miles have been covered since the rebuild. JIG 4 came without any accessories of any kind, but the vendors has managed to acquire a starting handle, wheel changing tools and a rear luggage grid, which has been restored and attached. This exceptionally well-documented Rolls-Royce 20 is offered with current road fund license, Swansea V5C and history file containing the aforementioned restoration records and factory paperwork.